And I'm back with another hand review. This time, we got a 2-for-1 deal for you because this first stream, this first set of hands from the stream on Tuesday, January 10th, it's not very eventful. I think there's only like 4 hands to go over from this one. So the second part of this video will have hands from the Thursday stream. Anyway, let's jump right into it. I open up 5-3 suited in this first one from the cutoff over a straddle to $10. And while this may seem loose in pre-flop charts for straddles, this is actually a low frequency open from the cutoff. So low frequency plays become high frequency plays when you're on stream. So I do it. I get called by Chaz on the button. The big blind comes along and it says the straddle comes along, but if you'll notice, he doesn't actually have cards in front of him, as you can see, so he did not defend his straddle. James checks to me, and I c-bet for $35. It's a small c-bet. I don't expect to get through everybody on the flop, but I have a massive range advantage on this board and plan to double barrel and get them off a wide range of hands on turns and rivers. 4 is a great turn card, giving me an open-ender and a lot of equity to continue bluffing. And with the king high dry-ish, I mean, there's spades, but otherwise the board is quite dry. I think this is a very good situation to overbet because my best hands, my strong king X, want max value in this type of situation. And I should also note that because Dan didn't actually defend his straddle, the pot is $25 smaller than the graphics show. So my overbet was roughly 125% the pot. Even though it looks like it's about pot. Anyway, I get called by Chaz again. And the river is a spade, which is a bit worrying, but I do have 5 high, which, you know, it's the nut low. Like, this is just absolute, like, stone cold, like, bottom of my range. I think it's just a hand like that's really a mandatory bluff. Like, if I'm going to have any bluffs, I think this would be in there. So I decide to go for about 2/3 pot sizing on this river. I'm not looking to fold out his strongest king X, but a hand like king 9 suited, king 8 suited could definitely find a fold on this river here. Spades come in, which is definitely something that I could be bluffing with as well. And he ends up folding the 8s, which is a great result. Exactly the type of hand that I was targeting. With my triple barrel, and it feels good to get one through at against the best player at the table. All right, moving onward. There's a $10 straddle, and I open up with king 4 suited in the hijack to $35. King 5 suited is an open, king 4 suited not so much, but you know it's on the edge, and we're on a live stream, so I decide to mix it up a little bit. Ends up folding all the way around to the straddle, who defends. And we go heads up to a flop. And it comes 9-9-3 with a club. It's a pretty dry board. Not even a flush draw or straight draw. So this is definitely a board where I could c-bet basically my entire range for a small size. And with the backdoor clubs, happy to do that as well. He makes the call. The turn's a queen of clubs, giving me backdoor flush draw. And I continue for a larger sizing of $90, about 3/4 pot. And, you know, representing Queen X and strong overpairs, maybe some 9X. And general high equity hands, which makes his tiny raise to 210 very weird. I'm not exactly sure how to react to this. I briefly considered 3-betting the flop, but I just don't think he's ever doing that. Like, this just seems like a really milky sizing, and I make the call, figuring there's a possibility my clubs are no good, but the price is just too good to fold them. And you know, if they are good, I could really stand to win a big pot if he has a hand like 9X. River's a really bad card. It's a 9. If he was raising a queen on the turn for protection for some reason, then now he's just not afraid of anything. Pocket 3s are counterfeit, which is interesting, but that's not a hand I would expect him to really turn into a bluff here when he ends up betting about looks like 550 on the river, and yeah, I just snap fold my clubs. And actually, right before, you'll never believe this, but I did say I think you have quads right before I folded, and you can see he showed the 9 there. Moving on, we have another $10 straddle from under the gun. +2 makes the call, and it folds to the button, who also limps. And Jacob in the small blind raised it up to 85, I think. And I wake up with jacks in the big blind. Definite 3-bet spot. The only question is what kind of sizing. And I go for around 3.5 times the raise to 300. Probably a little more than 3.5 times. Yeah, that's the main reason being that I'm in position against the original raiser. Chaz in the straddle ends up cold 4-betting to, we'll see here, I think it was 725 if I remember correctly.
Speaking of fun stuff, Chaz is going to raise his hand.
If the extra, yes, 750, okay. And it folds back around to Jacob. And spoiler alert, he ends up folding as well after a long tank. And now it's back on me. And I'm in a bit of a tough spot because I'm not really sure what kind of hand Chaz is called 4-betting here, like what his range really looks like. I mean, he is wild, but it's also a very, you know, like difficult spot to find, I guess, to, you know, like try and make moves in, I guess. It's you know, not a spot where you see people go hog wild very often. And I have a hand that definitely like is kind of on the edge because like queens I probably like 5-bet get it in, but jacks is kind of on the edge to where like it's gonna be a lot harder to get value from worse hands if I do 5-bet. Chaz is playing around 4K effective to start the hand, which makes it even more awkward because, you know, 400 blinds effective with a $10 straddle, like that's not a situation where you really want to get it in with jacks. And in case you have already figured it out by my tone and my word choice, I do end up making the call.
A tough situation because now Chaz has 3,200 behind. You know he's capable. Do you want to call and play him post flop? Do you want to try to get it in?
So we go to a flop and a 4-bet pot out of position, heads up against Chaz, and it comes queen high, which isn't great. There's an overcard, but you know, at least we're still beating ace king. I check and he checks behind, which is a little interesting. Not really sure about this check, about what hands he's really checking behind with, but I don't think it really affects my decision with jacks. Like, I think this is just a hand that really wants to take its showdown value, and you know, it's probably one of my like my best bluff catcher in terms of absolute hand strength when I check twice on the flop in turn, and then I check again on the river when the 9 comes. Like, the 9 is really inconsequential, but like I said, jacks is just a hand that wants to get the showdown and you know, catch bluffs, and can't really value bet on this river. It would be a little too thin, especially against a player like Chaz, who is capable of you know, sensing weakness. If I were to value bet small, like thin here, sensing weakness and raising to put me in a tough spot. And I check, and he doesn't snap check behind, which I don't really like. Means he probably doesn't have a hand like tens or ace king. And he puts in a big bet of 1375, and I think, you know, it's a really tough spot here with jacks, or it's not a really tough spot here with jacks, just because, you know, like I said, my absolute hand strength is too good, given that I check 3 times, too good to fold. So I think I just have to pay him off here. It's unfortunate that he played a queen in this way, but you know, I just think it's like, in a sense, it's kind of a cooler given the lines that given the line that I took. Is just, if I were folding jacks here, I'd just be too exploitable. It's just, I'd be overfolding the river for sure. That's going to do it for the Tuesday stream. Not very eventful. I lied in the intro. There is only 3 hands to go over, not 4. But yeah, you can see it was, apart from that big pot with Chaz, I was doing okay. It's just that the jacks against King Queen was a huge chunk of my profit because, even though my VPIP was over 30%, I just did not really get into any major hands besides the ones we've already gone over, which is pretty rare for a 4-hour stream. So let's move on to the Thursday one too. It's a lot more exciting, a lot more action in this one. All right, let's get into this second stream, the Thursday 1-2, which has generally been a lot more action than the 2-5, funny enough. And this first hand really will demonstrate that. It's a very interesting one. We have a $5 straddle, and Bruno raises it up and +3 to 20. And Rory 3 bets from the cutoff to $70. Alex cold calls the 3 bet on the button, and I wake up in the small blind with ace-queen offsuit. Now, this, spoiler alert, I end up 4-bet bluffing. And the reason I say 4-bet bluffing is, of course, because I'm not betting for value. I'm not looking to get called by a hand like ace-jack. It's a little bit ambitious to expect those hands to call, but I do have very good blockers to ace-king, aces, and queens. And, I prefer to be suited in this spot, but, ace-queen is, considering like the ranges that I think Rory is 3-betting with and Alex cold calling with, I think ace-queen is definitely good enough to get in the mix. And being in the small blind, I don't want to play out of position post-flop, so it's a 4-better fold scenario, and I go with the 4-bet, looking to get it in on the flop if I hit. Alex cold calls the 3-bet and then calls the 4-bet. So I put him on a pretty tight but capped range. And the board of 6, 7, 8 is very bad for what I put him on. I think he can have maybe some. I think he definitely could have a set of 8s. Not really sure about 7s and 6s, but he has most of the overpairs, 9s, 10s, jacks, maybe even queens. So I check, of course, a really bad board in general for me. I'd pretty much check this board, even if I add overpairs. But he checks behind, which is interesting, and we see a big brick on the turn, although it does bring in backdoor spades. I do block the front door hearts, which actually blocks the combos that he could bluff with. So it's actually, I guess, kind of a good card because it means I won't face pressure as often, but it's kind of a minor effect on that. But like still, ace-queen, at this point, I'm like on the turn, I'm pretty much done with the hand. The river's another 8. And I'm not getting him off an overpair like 9s, 10s, jacks if like he's just checking that down. Like at this point, I just don't think he's ever folding like his showdown value hands. And I obviously don't beat. I like any hands that I beat, like he probably would have started bluffing by now. So I've just kind of given up. I give up on the turn. Definitely given up on the river. And I get bailed out at the end here when he ultimately decides to check. And we have the same hand. So very nice result. I was fully expecting to lose that hand.
Yeah, it's really hard to. A lot of players will take that.
And to split the dead money with Alex.
On the river, yeah, I think maybe
And starting off, not too bad.
Man, you have so much.
All right, this next hand is a PLO bomb pot, and I generally don't like to show these because I don't really think there's too much to discuss with them, and I don't really care for them personally. But this one is just interesting, and I think worth discussing because it sets the tone for me for the rest of the session.
Okay.
They win the button
This was
sequence.
pretty early on.
So they just wanna
I think
do
this
more
was like the
often.
first one we did, maybe the
Yeah,
second.
if anyone has, if
Anyway,
there's anyone that
it's
hasn't
a
seen
PLO
the
double
bomb
board
pot
bomb
before,
pot.
it's essentially
The
it's
first
12
board comes
cards,
4-5-4 with a couple of
and everyone
diamonds,
gets 4
and the
cards,
second
all
board
put in
comes
the
King
amount, so
7
in this
6
case
with
it's $50,
all
and they all get
hearts.
to see 2 flops. 2 of the cards in their hand of 4.
And I'm in
play
middle
on either
position.
side
It
of the
checks
board.
around to me.
So it
Small blind, big
insane.
blind, under the gun,
You see
+1,
that-
+2,
oh
all
my
check.
gosh, Eric
And
flops
I
the
pot
button
it. I
5-4,
have
but
8
Robert
5
has
4
pocket
3, so I
fives.
have a wrap on the bottom board.
What
That's all hearts,
brutal
which
spot.
is,
And
it's something,
what's
but
insane about
I could
this
just be
is
dead
that
against a flush.
flushes are not
But the
gonna
main
get
thing is
super
that I have
strong. You got a
5-4 on the
flush
top
with
board,
9 deuce of hearts,
which gives
and
me
Rob also has
full
8-5
house.
for a open-ended straight draw.
And and the only hand I'm losing to on that board is 5-5,
Yeah, so,
which I,
Sean is really
there's
ready
one
with the
combo of that.
flush, and you can see his
Anyway,
little
I pot it.
pocket.
I get called by Robert on my direct left,
Yeah, and as he
and
should, there's
Bruno,
gonna be a ton of flushes, especially
who was
whenever
second to
it's called.
act
That's the thing, his
pre-flop.
background, he's
So we go
very,
3 ways to a turn.
experienced in the Big O with the multi-card game, so. he knows
And the
what's
2
up.
turns are the deuce of diamonds. Well, the boards are flipped on the software.
Rob here is,
So yeah, on the all hearts
this
board it's
spot
total
is
brick,
just
deuce of
always gonna
diamonds,
get
and
in
then
with Eric.
on
Eric
the
has gotta be feeling
top
good.
board where I have the
4,
full
4,
house,
5.
it's a queen of hearts. So now I am losing to queen 4 and pocket queens, which are possibilities. But I'm not too worried about that. I check because I'm out of position, and because Robert called on my direct left my pot size bet.
Yeah, and the thing is that Rob
That
goes
looks pretty
pot
strong.
bet, it's really
So
hard for
I,
Bruno to
with
compete
my
against
full
him.
house, I don't really have too much to protect against.
Bruno,
Um,
well, Bruno's in trouble.
so I check, even though I'm not really afraid of too much. And
Eric
he pots
has
it
that
for
feel to him,
540.
but he doesn't have,
Bruno's got a wrap on the top.
And he doesn't leave himself much behind. He has only 300 something behind. And when Bruno makes the fold, I just repot it because I know I'm never folding. And he snap calls, and I expect to at least have the top board, but I am surprised to see him turn over the pocket fives. I am still live on the other board with my straight draws, but I brick out. Neither of us have hearts.
oh, and he's dead.
And he scoops this one, and I
Wow, Eric
take a
gets
pretty
scooped
substantial
here.
loss early on in the session. Not really much I could do there, so no reason to tilt or anything. It's just nuts against second nuts on one of the boards, and I had equity on the other board too, so not really much to decipher there in terms of analysis. But it puts me in the hole big time early on, and I thought it was worth
When I
sharing.
got into poker, I didn't really understand the guarantee portion.
Yeah.
All right, this next hand, there's a $10
Or
straddle
something like that,
from
so
under the
it's
gun.
So cool that Rounders is doing that. I mean, they're straight up
And
just losing $1,000 right there.
it folds to Rory
Doesn't
in
give it back to
plus
you.
Yeah, just
3,
putting it back
who
in the,
opens it up to $30.
the Rounders economy.
And I make a bit of a loose call in the cutoff
Just
with the
what we
king
like to
8
call
of
added
clubs,
value.
but I'm trying to get in there and play some pots. I am a little bit
Sunday-
buzzed at this
Sunday
point, I will
perhaps.
admit.
Let me find it.
So yeah, it's definitely loose from the cutoff, but as we can
2
see,
o'clock.
Rory is
So it's an
also
$80
opening
buy-in.
loose. And
And it gets 60,000 chips.
I like playing with Rory. I like
Start check.
he's a tough player to play against.
That's
And,
awesome.
Always a good challenge.
you get up
Anyway,
to
Jacob
3
completes
bucks
in
on
the
thing.
straddle,
Oh, wow.
and we go 3 ways to a flop of queen 8-6,
So
no
that
clubs. So
would be
unfortunately, no
16
backdoor
bucks
flush, but I do hit second pair.
tournament formats, just to kinda keep things
And
fresh.
this is a very, very draw-heavy board. So when he bets 60, he's quite polarized, I guess. And I think that with a hand like king 8 that beats all bluffs and doesn't block bluffs either. And obviously losing to his value, but I think this is a fine hand to call on the flop with, even though there's a player behind. I know that Jacob is really loose and just going to check fold very often. Anyway, 7 of diamonds on the turn. Not really loving this card because a lot of his bluffs get there. But he takes a very, very interesting sizing. He bets $60, which is less than a third of the pot. And now at this point, I know I have the worst hand. But I feel like he's trying to set his price with something like a queen, or I don't know, like some sort of weak under pair, like jacks, 10s, 9s. I don't know, queen with like a weak kicker. So I actually make the call because rather than raise, I thought it would look more stronger if I called and then tried to bluff the river, like raise his riverbed, or when he checks, I bomb the river. Than if I were to raise the turn. I thought it would look much. It was a much more. It would be a much more underbluffed line. Bottom line is, I know I have the worst hand, so I'm just trying to think of what is the best way to, like, you know, make my bluff the most believable, and that's why I call as opposed to raising on the turn. And when he bets 220, I wasn't expecting this large of a sizing, especially on the ace river. He could have ace queen, but he could also have like ace king with a diamond that was betting small on the turn to set his own price. Excuse me. And he has about 1,200 behind when he bets 220, so I rip it for about a pot size raise. And he is not in a fun spot. And I admit my hand selection probably not the best, but I just really felt like I could over bluff and just take advantage of, you know, I just thought he would overfold against this particular line from me. And I've played with Rory a few times before. He, it is my understanding that he thinks I'm a very tight player, and you know, I don't get out of line too often. So to make a move like this is totally not something that he would expect from me. And I thought I could really get him to fold a lot. Like, I thought I was targeting his ace queen, his ace king, ace jack. I don't know, maybe something like a bottom set even. I didn't put him on a hand like 10-9. But you know, I guess it kind of falls into the same category. Like, he's not really beating much of my value. I could take a line like this with 10-9 as well, but I'm not, like, I'd raise sets on the flop, and I'm probably not calling sevens on the flop. So I don't really have sets in my range. So it's funny, like, even though he has such a strong hand, it's almost a pure bluff catcher at this point, considering my value range on this river. So it's a genuinely difficult spot, and a very underbluffed line, which is why I decided to take it.
The thing is, though, there are some times where something just doesn't. So this is a very polarizing bet. He has the nuts, or it's a bluff. He could be doing it with just the bare ace of diamonds, and maybe Rory says,